Hello everyone, Steve Burns, and let's talk about posing the 3D characters that we've imported inside of Photoshop. And if we take a look here, I have two 3D layers. I'm going to turn one off and there's the other. Okay, we have a white background there. And both 3D characters that we brought in from Fuse and Mixamo. Now, I've got two separate scenes. Now, what we're used to doing is merging our 3D objects together. And then so that we have one light that's going to affect the shadows and the highlights for both scenes. Now, as you can see here in the bottom, I have my timeline with both layers are open. So if I go ahead and scroll the timeline, as you can see, as one layer is targeted, I compose each character. There's my guy that's falling down, hitting the ground, then bang. All right. Okay. If I target the other layer, we can scroll the timeline to get that perspective as well. Now, if I watch what happens if I merge them together, I'm going to select both layers, go to our 3D panel, and I'm going to merge the 3D objects. And let's go ahead. There it is. Now they're both merged. That means these both are on the same layer, right? Okay. Now, watch what happens when I scroll the timeline back and forth. Each one, the animation is still intact. The problem is if I want to target each one independently, and to pose each one independently, it's going to be a little bit of a problem. If I come back to my 3D panel here, and now if we take a look at this, here are all of my 3D objects. I've got two of them. Let's go over here to my 3D, and how about group all 3D objects in the scene? Right, there we go. All right, so here's one, and there is the other. So if I target one 3D object, still both are being animated along the timeline equally at the same time. That's not what we want to do. I want to keep this separate. All right, so there's no way to really separate this in terms of the animation. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit the Command Option Z to go back. Let's go ahead and split these up into two separate layers. There we are. Okay, and there they are. So I'm going to have, so in terms of a workflow for merging your 3D characters that you bring in from Mixamo, I recommend in terms of a workflow to keep them onto separate layers. That means your lighting is going to be separate for each scene. However, you're going to have to just make sure that both light sources and camera focal lengths are exactly the same. Okay, so if I target this first one here, go to my 3D panel, and I target the camera, and say for example I'm going to make the camera a 50mm lens, and I'm going to hit enter, and okay, so that one's set. Now we're going to go back to the other layer right below it, target that one, and we're going to set that up as a 50mm lens as well. Okay, there we go. Now I want to make sure that the ground plane matches as best as it can. So let's go over to our falling guy in the front. It's on the top layer, which is where I want it, because I'm going to go ahead and bring it around. So I want to take it like this. Yeah, that's it. Okay, we're going to have the camera viewing this way. Now go to my pan tool for the camera and just bring it down like so. Okay, so I'm going to bring it down a little more. Now as you can see, my guy's going out of the frame just a little bit. If I want to change that, and I want to keep this perspective, for instance, then what I can do is hit the C key for the crop tool, and of course pull it down a little bit if I want to add a little more space to the bottom. Or you can crop it if you like. It's all up to you. All right, so I'm going to select it. That's my pan tool. There we go. So I'm going to try to match, and I'm going to go click on the other one real quickly, target it, and that's pretty close. That's pretty close. Go to my rotation command. That's good. Now, looking at the light sources, I'm going to look at my main guy here. The light source looks like it's coming straight up from above. Go to my 3D panel. Target the light source. Now I have two different types of light sources here, right? So I have this one coming from above. Then I have another coming from behind. Now, one coming from above is 90%. Let me bring that down just a little bit. Take it to something like, we'll say 70%. Let's put in the same light source. Now, I'm going to target the other light source. As you can see, that's coming slightly from behind. And then I'm going to take it so that it's coming from above and behind. Now, if the guy in the front's in the way, we'll go ahead and turn him off temporarily. Okay, there we go. Gives me a better idea. That's great. Okay. And I'm going to go to the light source, my 3D panel, target that light source, and that one's about 100% coming from behind. There we go. I want more of a rim lighting here. And we're going to take that one up closer to like 300%. And nice little rim lighting technique there. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I remember the front was, let's go take a look at that again, was 70%. The back one was 300%. So if I go and get the guy falling down here, remember the back was about 300%. The front is 70%. So go over to my 3D panel. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to save all of this. There we go. Character setup. I'm going to just call it number 2. There we go. Always save often. There's less grief. Okay. There we are. Now I'm going to go to this light source. The one from the back. That's about right. It matched the other one pretty closely. From the rear. Let's go over here and give it about 300%. Okay. We can see that rim lighting there. So you can see the shadow on him falling on the ground as well. Let's go ahead and bring in our other light source. Okay, right down here in the bottom, a little light bulb symbol, and add another infinite light. That was about 70%, and that was about, yeah, that's about right. Right, you know, similar positioning. And we're going to come over here, and we're going to tell it to be about 70%. There. Okay. So, keep in mind that each layer you're going to have to render. So if you're going to render everything into their own layer, you have to render each layer separately. All right, so then my idea is to have one character positioned one way and the other another. So I'm going to target the standing guy, and the 3D engine is going to favor the standing guy in terms of showing you the animation once he's positioned, and I release my mouse or stylus off of the pad. The other one's going to jump to its position on that moment, on that timeline where that playhead is going to sit. That doesn't matter, because what I want to do is just turn this one off. I want to render this one. Now, take note that I've turned off the background because I want my character to be on a blank transparent layer. Now, this is something some of you may have a problem with, in that you're going to render it. You know, this next step, you're gonna render everything with that white background, and things aren't going to blend together correctly. Now, what you're going to do is this. I want to render it. Watch. I'm going to hit my Command and Control, Alt Option, Shift E, or not Shift E, but Shift R. So all three with an R, and then it's going to begin to render your character, as you can see here. Once it's rendered, and I could let it go for a little longer so I get a real nice sharp rendering before I'm just to save time, I'm going to stop it with an escape. I'm going to say, okay, that render looks good. Make a new layer right above it, because in order to render it into a new layer, you have to have a blank one targeted. And then Control or Command, Alt or Option, Shift E will merge it all into that new layer. Now you no longer have a 3D object, you have a standard 2D object on a rasterized on this blank layer. So I'm going to turn off that 3D because I don't need it anymore. Now I'm going to target the 3D object of the guy falling down. Take my playhead, position him the way I want him. Say, for example, that positioning. And I left the top one on so that you can see the positioning, which is a good workflow to utilize. Now, once I have him positioned correctly, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the standing guy, make a new layer to merge this into a new layer. Use my shortcut, Command and Control, Alt Option E, as in Edward, and merge that. Now I don't need my 3D objects anymore. In fact, I can take the 3D objects, I'm going to move it down below, select both of those layers, Command G for group, and just call this one 3D files. Okay, there we go. Command S, save that, so I don't lose any of this. Now what I can do is turn them both on, and there's my action. At this point, and this is assuming that you've already built your composite. So your composite is going to be a minimum of 20 objects. I recommend that you build your stage first. Build your environment first, utilizing your 3D, your 20 images, and then fit the characters within that environment. Okay, so make sure it's lit right according to your environment. Now I lit it according to my imagination here, sharing that I wanted the background to be backlit a little bit. I'm going to go right down here and add a different background. Let's go to my layers and add, let's just go for a gradient layer. Okay, and go right over to here, go to black to white, or better yet, let's go to something like a gray. There we go. Okay, take a look at this, and I'm going to adjust this so that my angle is going the opposite way. I'm just taking it and scrolling it down underneath. There you go. All right, so now we can see it better. So just an adjustment gradient layer right down here, black and white half circle, gradient, and then you can use any gradient that you want. Okay, so I have my two rasterized images in the top. So that's a workflow in creating your concept scene, utilizing your 3D characters. Now from here, will be impress me. I mean, bring in other characters in the background, maybe watching. Make sure those characters don't conflict with this. Bring them in the background, render them out. They look like they're watching. You can give them a slight blur to make it look like there's a shallow depth of field or something. Play around with this. Okay. I recommend, once again, that you build your scene first, build your environment first, and then bring your characters into your environment. Now, I'm not going to build one for this tutorial because you guys, we've been working with compositing all semester long. So you guys already know how to create a composited scene using photographic information. Build a kick-ass, creative scene. Bring your 3D guys into it. Think about the focal length of lenses that are used to create your 3D scene. Whether you want a wide angle, whether you want a telephoto, remember, use your perspective grids to assist you. So this assignment is going to help you for the final, where we're going to be doing a whole lot of different stuff. Okay, so the final is going to be a little bit more time consuming, but you're going to have the skill sets already to complete it. All that's required is that you guys allow yourself the time to finish the final. Okay. All right. I think you guys, you get the point. Once all done, we can. What I want you to do is give me the PSD file as well as the a rendered JPEG file with everything rendered and so forth. Okay. And don't forget for your lighting source that you can adjust it so that the shadows are more softer too, just as a little bit of a quick little tip. All right. So have fun with this. I'm looking forward to seeing your work. Steve Burns signing off.